All right, here we go. Standard 3. Again, these are the questions from your test, but they should help you review going forward. So, question 3, standard 3. I can multiply and divide positive and negative numbers. Just a quick reminder, we went through why this is the case, and I'll talk about it in here, but what we did talk about is if you have a positive times a positive, or for division, it's the same for division, you'll always get a positive answer. A negative times a negative will also give you a positive answer. And then if they're mixed signs, so if you have like a positive number times a negative, or a negative number times a positive, you're going to get negative answers. So you can just remember those rules. In fact, a lot of people probably just memorize those rules. But I'll try to remind you how we think about it to remember the rules too as we go through. So starting here, 5 times negative 2. We think of this as 5 groups of negative 2. So if I have 5 groups of negative 2, that's a whole bunch of negative numbers. That's going to give me a negative answer, and 5 times 2 is 10. Okay? On to number 2 here, or 12, it's actually 12. Sorry, I'm going through the numbers in the test. Negative 9 times 4. The way we think of this one, you're right if you're thinking it's going to be a negative answer. We think of this as, if there's a negative in the front, we called it the opposite of 9 groups of 4. Oops, I'm off the screen a little bit there. So 9 groups of 4 is 36. 9 times 4 is 36. But this is the opposite of that, so it must be negative 36. And again, you can also just know that a negative times a positive is a negative. That's okay too. I'm just trying to help you remember why. The next one here, again, the first number is negative, so we're going to use that phrasing again, the opposite. We're going to say the opposite of, I should write as a number, 6 groups of negative 8. So 6 groups of negative 8, 6 times 8 is 48, but 6 groups of negative 8 would be negative 48. But I want the opposite of negative 48, so that's positive 48. Let me say that again. 6 groups of negative 8 would be negative, 6 groups of negative 8 would be negative 48, but we want the opposite of that, so it becomes positive again. All right, 14 here, I gave you 3 numbers to multiply. We're going to tackle them in groups here. So you multiply left to right. Negative 5 times negative 2. I'm not going to write this all out here, but this would be the opposite of 5 groups of negative 2. A negative times a negative is a positive. It's going to be positive 10. Still times negative 3. This is another multiplication problem here. 10 groups of negative 3. A positive times a negative is a negative, so this is negative 30. Just looking over my answers to make sure these all look right. Yes, okay. And now let's move down to 15 and 16. They're side by side. We'll take 15 first. Remember I said division has the same rules here. So a negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. So 100 divided by 20 is 5, and it's just 5, because it's a negative number divided by another negative number. It's going to be positive. And for 16, again, a negative divided by a positive, just like a negative times a positive, this is going to be a negative answer. And 50 divided by 10 is, it's actually also 5, so it's going to be negative 5. All right, and there's a little bit on standard 3.